Hey, welcome. This is Irene, the place called the Church Podcast. And for those of you that check this out on LICMC, you can check out a lot of our long form programming there at LICMC. Look for them on Facebook at licmc.net radio. You can also find them on London, Washington on YouTube and licmc.net. But yeah, so we have this podcast, a place called The Church, inspired by real life events from my family. I'll say my elders. So, there's things going on, and it'll probably continue to go on where the church will be questioned. The church is not really doing what it seems like the church would do, but maybe some things that the world would do, maybe some things that the devil would do. There's stories like this all around. So the point of this podcast is to talk about it, share your testimony, reveal, but also to learn. Because a lot of times when we keep these things in the dark, that's the real issue. And we put on this pretty little front that there's no problems and nothing wrong and this is a perfect place. Then that's when people's expectations get blown. That's when they get misled. That's why they will go astray and not want to return to the church. But know this, once you get a connection with God, never break that connection, because the church doesn't always reflect the will of God. It's true. So as you grow your relationship with God, He will teach you, He will show you, He will give you discernment, and He will protect you from those so-called wolves in sheep's clothing. That's really what this whole podcast is about, wolves in sheep's clothing. People, in a way, pretending. Some with good intentions and maybe just are misled, not fully informed, and some that are just outright sent by the enemy himself. So just want to give you guys a little background before we get into this episode. We have another host, and we'll be having other people come and host these episodes. So if you have a story about your experience in the church, good, bad, and other, we want to hear it right here on the place called the church. But I wanted to talk about this podcast. Not this podcast, I'm sorry. It kind of was a podcast. It was maybe even more than that. It's a whole movement. And it's a documentary about the cult of Nature Boy. And it came out on Hulu. Now, come to find out, this guy's had a whole social media following since 2017-ish or so. So he kind of built up his so-called cult on social media. He came one way, and, he's a little bit different than your usual cult leader. You may think of the Jim Joneses or whatnot. And there's others. He doesn't fit the typical MO. He's a man of color. And he used that to appeal to other men and women of color. The struggles that were going on in the world, he used that, to tell people, you can break free from this. You don't have to live under the system, so to speak. And he said, go live out on nature. And we can kind of rebuild our own society. We don't have to revolt. We don't have to fight back. Let's just do our own thing. You guys might be familiar, I think, with Dr. Sebi. And I think he has connections with Tupac. And, some other major figures. I think, I believe Nipsey Hussle. There were a lot of people that follow him. But he talked about nature and how you can be healthy living off the land and things in nature. So I feel like, this Nature Boy guy, he kind of tapped into that. I believe he started out having his own business, and he looks like a reputable character. And for some reason, he decides to go live off the land. And he's like in these beautiful locations. And when you see him on social media, he's out in this amazing land that God himself created. And people were tantalized by that. They were excited by that. And they just wanted to get out of where they were and what they were in. The issues of the world, everything was, police brutality, all these different things that we face as people of color. But they really noted different things like police brutality, different things that minorities face. Turns out he had, I think he had a couple of Caucasian people that decided to join just because they wanted to leave the system. And I think he said something about you're working for the man. What about enjoying your life and having your own purpose? So, that's another way to appeal. So he did have a couple of people that were not people of color join. And he also used a hookup culture. Like he was using a lot of different methods because he was like, hey, black women, beautiful queens. I don't know if he used those words, but he's like, look at these handsome, eligible men out here. You looking for your own African king here, come here and you can find you a good man. You guys can live in paradise together. It's like the original Garden of Eden, which I didn't even think of taking it to that tone, but yeah. So I'm just giving a little feedback of my thoughts on the Nature Boy documentary. And you can find out more on Hulu. We have other topics we'll be discussing. I shared, and I think it's called, He Called Me Daughter. I shared a trailer from that, and I think that's on Angel Studios. And this young lady she's not that young anymore, but she's been in Christian comedy for many years. And she gives her backstory of how her daddy was not such a good daddy and he was a preacher man. So she's like the daughter of a preacher man. And it was a lot of major issues when it came to her preacher dad. I think that we're going to probably cover that in the future. But let's get back into the Cult of Nature Boy. But if you have any hot topics or anything, and I'm not just talking about hot topics, but topics that are connected to, showing real truth, things going on in this world, things you may have experienced, videos, like drop the link, share with us something that we should put on. Let us know something we should discuss. Let us know. That's right here on the channel. All right. This is for people that are believers and for non-believers, for anyone that just wants to know the truth and live the truth and really connect with God. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But again, back to Nature Boy. So he came a certain way. He had, it seemed like he had all the good intentions in the world. So they slept outside in tents, but they had lived in Airbnb. So they would be out of the middle of nowhere. I think the first place they were in is South America, in the middle of nowhere. So the common theme is you get picked up in the airport by a car. You're driving through this amazing scenery. You're going to the middle of nowhere. And it almost gives me horror movie vibes. Somebody driving you to the middle of nowhere, but you have no idea that you're not going to the promised land, right? So let's just skip forward. So Nature Boy, he believes that all the men and women, they should pair up and be married. You shouldn't just be with the woman, you should have a purpose with her. So you guys should be married. So they were symbolically married. No actual papers, right? They were off the grid. They were living off the land and they weren't trying to follow society 100%. But thing about Nature Boy, he also used the Bible. He used some biblical themes to draw people in. And that's what I think is where the cult part comes in as well. Because when you use religion and people's faith and their beliefs, and you use that to draw them in and mislead them, that's cult-like behavior. And then if they really believe it's from God, they're going to believe that God has this purpose for them. So he then went from, he also had a backstory of just having an abusive lifestyle, growing up, going through abuse. And, I guess he got himself out of these scenarios and was able to live a decent life, but he would talk to them about all the challenges and trials he went through. But so they're coupled up, and he would just challenge everyone. Oh, another thing I want to mention, this is as more things unfold. So he uses, I think, something in the Bible saying, sell everything you own and have, and, follow me. Leave everything behind and follow me. I believe that Jesus asked the rich man to do that. If you really want to follow me, you have to leave everything behind and follow me. So he literally had these people leaving everything behind, but they had to come with their credit cards. They have to come with everything in their bank account and say, well, this is like the fee to get in. It's basically your life savings. And one young lady gave like $3,000 from her college scholarship. That's all she had. And she entered the cult. And she met this amazing guy. And they were technically married and hooked up and connected through this cult that we just think is, I think it's called carbonation. So that was another catch. And then one of the Caucasian gentlemen, I'm not sure his race, he did not look like he was just Caucasian. He may have had another background, but he wasn't African American either, or African of any kind. So he kind of saw the catch when Nature Boy was, using his debit card to go buy a pool table and just buy stuff for the house so that they can kind of enjoy themselves. So I feel like almost like it was a frat house on some level. He would get these amazing Airbnbs and they would live off the land. You couldn't go to the bathroom. So, you really couldn't use the toilet. You aren't supposed to use the toilet. You're supposed to go out in nature. So he shows a watermelon that he grew with his own, waste. And it's like, this is what I grew for my body with pride. I'm like, okay, that's kind of disgusting, but wow, it's amazing that you could do something like that. I don't know what instructions he took, because he did start off giving health tips and whatnot on his social medias. And then it turned and became this whole big thing where come with me type of thing, right? So, the people had to give their money to come with him. So he's like, the money has to pay for us to eat, survive. We are living off the land, but you need seeds and all of this. If you guys are going to use the Airbnb house for whatever they're using it for, a mini mansion, then we're going to have to pay for this little mini mansion so you can be able to use the house facilities, and you go out at night and sleep in the tents. One young lady had a story. She came there as a virgin, and she was hooked up with a certain guy she didn't want to really be hooked up with. So when a new guy came through, she's like, this is the guy that I really want. So at first, everybody was finding their partner, right? And then one of the young ladies fell out with her guy. So the Nature Boy leader himself, he's like, you can be with me and you can be my queen. So he put her in this queen position. But at some point, that wasn't enough for him. So, the women would do what he wanted. The men would do as they're asked and told. They were calling him king and calling the young lady queen. So he could basically do whatever he wanted. They're putting this on social media. They're getting hundreds of thousands of people starting to follow them. So I'm sure they're monetizing. They're getting that monetization money. They're also getting donations. People are supporting. he would get arrested or something like that. And it could be, one time it was because they were out during COVID, early in COVID. It would be for different reasons, but he would act as if it was because he was the son of God, so to speak, or he was a civil rights type leader. He said, people hated Jesus. He would make those connections. He was hated because he was a good guy and doing the right thing and changing the world. He's not bothering anyone, so why are they coming to bother him, right? So he would use this commotion to get more donations, get more support from people, and then rally around him. And they furthermore believed that he was the Messiah or something. So he started off saying he was a prophet. Then he started saying he was a king. And then he started saying he was God. So it developed. He started out just like any predator, coming to you in a comely fashion, just like maybe Satan himself, coming to you in a way that looks pleasant, offering you things that look good, and then turn around and he became a monster at the end of the day. So once he saw these people were doing whatever he wanted, I'll give you an age. Somebody said they were 23. These are maybe young people, don't really have their life together yet, trying to find purpose. So he was easily able to use these young people. At some point, he encouraged polygamy. He said he wants to have many wives. So the young lady that was the queen, she didn't feel good about this. The other wives would fight amongst each other. At first, he had the queen pick different women. So he made it seem like she was a part of this, like, I don't know if it's a 3 situation, but it's probably more than that. So the young lady, she held the young lady's hand as he took her virginity to comfort her. So he was trying to make her a part of this strange thing. Like they had some kind of union, but she said she didn't feel right about it. He was abusive to her. She had his baby. There may have been other young ladies that had his baby there as well. So it was kind of like he then began to take advantage of all these young people. And, they were supposed to be living off the land, but it turns out he started to live and feed off of these young people's energy, their life force, and do all sorts of things to them and with them. And he would put them on social media and make them do all of these different things. They would get views and clicks. And it was abusive. And I don't know why all these people were watching. Some people watched, and some people actually reported some of the things that they saw. I don't know what took them so long to actually do anything. So he would get deported. They would get deported for whatever reason. The first time I think it was because they were going against the COVID laws and they were going out to eat and all that stuff because they would go in the city sometimes. So he would do kind of what he wanted. And so they got arrested for that. Then they eventually got deported. He also acted up when he got arrested. So his actions caused him to get deported. So they would go to another country where it's beautiful and lush, and it's like in tropical areas where he could get an Airbnb, and he would just jump from country to country because they would keep getting deported. And finally he had to end up in Atlanta because no one else would let them in, right? So now at this point, they were all just living in a house together, a bunch of weird people living together, having their own little secret society, making money off of this guy, do wild stuff to these people, and just people laughing and watching as he says, jump this high, and you say how high, and you do it, and people are laughing, and, just doing strange things to these people and seeing how far they will go. So he started getting high off the power. He was calling himself God. He was cussing them out. Like he was doing very ungodlike things, calling himself God. At the end of the day, one of the young ladies, she left the group and she took her baby with her. One day she just got everybody drunk and high, left and took her baby, didn't say a word, disappeared. Another young lady was raped, even though she said they made love on the police records. She then says she was raped. The rape charges, there was another charge something about holding someone against their will or something like that, keeping them against their will. So those charges like that. So then they had to build a case, and they had to get other people that were a part of the cult to, co-sign this. So as they were going through the case, and it was hard for some of these people to break their bond with this man, they still wanted to believe he was someone from heaven, though he was acting completely opposite. There were still people on his side, people protesting the fact that he was even in jail and had charges on him. And he even told the people, you know what, I forgive them. He acts as if he is Jesus himself. And the lawyer, not the lawyer, the judge is like, you know what, you laughed at these people's testimonies as if mocking them, and you didn't accept the responsibility of what you did. So you're going to get life without parole. I was shocked he got life without parole. I don't know if it's possible for him to appeal it, but even in jail, he was saying some crazy things. I wouldn't be surprised if he appealed and tried to get out. But they're saying this man is just a dangerous man because people were easily following him. And just imagine if you come across someone like that in the church. There's all different types of churches. There's all different types of denominations. And some people make their own churches. So you have to be careful. Now, I'm not saying, yay, all churches are to this level and almost cult-like, but there's been situations where men of God have asked people to do things that were not of God, have propositioned people, have used people and abused people, have stolen from people. Everything this man has done, there are some people out there that are doing that in the name of God. And that's what he did at first until he then decided to become God himself. These kids were so wrapped up in this that they didn't know up from down. One of the young men said, you need to believe in something or basically you'll fall for anything. And he said it not in those words, but basically that's what he said. Yeah, so we can't just sit here and just be. We have to, and eventually you're going to have to choose, what do you believe? Because somebody can come to you and offer you a pipe dream, offer you a paradise, while they're really taking you down to the other side. This was a powerful documentary. It showed you that just like God can use anyone, so can the devil. Doesn't matter your skin color, doesn't matter your situation. A lot of times he uses people that look like you. He uses people that you connect with. He uses people that are attractive to you. All of these different things. So it's just a cautionary tale of, what you think might be church is not church. Again, I'm not saying the church world is like this cult, but there are some that use God's name for their own pleasure, for their own gain, and some even become corrupt. He manipulated and brainwashed them, and this is what was said. Cults have been existing for probably since the beginning of time. I want to look at the book of Daniel, and I'll put the verse here on the screen and probably in the description, or not the verse, but maybe the chapter. But King Nebuchadnezzar, he took these young men from their land, told them to eat his foods, told them to bow to his God. They didn't want to do it, and they were going to be punished by death. And, Nature Boy, he had his own punishments, usually physical abuse. But when thrown in the fiery furnace, God was on their side. Don't let anyone strip you of your identity. Don't let any false prophets strip you of your connection with God. And you may have been in a church, seen other people in churches that were not right, seen them in cults, seen them in these different places. But don't let that strip your identity and your connection with God. And You are the church. Remember that. If you've given your life to Christ sincerely with the whole heart, know that you are the church. And no one can take that from you. If God leads you to a new church, that's beautiful. If God leads you to the church that is right for you, we pray that for you. In the meantime, and even while you're in that new assembly, know that you are the church and the church is in you. All right, guys. So I'm done with talking about this documentary. Did you see it? What are your thoughts, comments, questions? Let us know. And you can email me at cbizmedia1@gmail.com. That's cbizmedia1@gmail.com. If you'd like to connect, if you'd like to do your own 30 minutes here and talk about your experience, do a monologue such as I've just done, there's opportunities to do that here on this platform. Let us know, connect with us, and we'll talk to you again next time on the place called the church. All the best. God bless.